Dr. Suleiman, who was head of Accenture, was also chair of the board at Unilag at the time. While he was there, Unilag never asked him for money. Not one day did they ask him as alumni to donate. It was after he'd left that he realized that as part of being MD of Accenture, which is a global company, Accenture would have matched whatever donations he made to Unilag. So if, for the sake of argument, Dr. Suleiman had given Accenture, Unilag 5 million naira, Accenture would have matched that fund. So Unilag would have gotten 10 million naira. I mean, I've written a few. For a caveat, I'm very biased. I'm a campus child. Both my parents were academics, so that's the perspective that I come from. And I've put some of my comments in the chat box. But I think, I mean, yes, people who have said we tend to focus on tertiary education is right. But at the end of the day, when we talk about sort of advancing the frontiers of innovation, research, and all of that, it's from your tertiary institutions that they will come from, which is why there's a lot of emphasis in that regard, number one. Number two, in a lot of ways, the private sector has taken over primary and secondary education, even in rural areas. In my small village, I don't know how many thousands of people are there. There are, I think, 30 private schools of various shapes and sizes in my village in Ondo State. But tertiary education is a lot more expensive for you to have private players. And that's why it also comes up quite a bit in discussions. And then also the fact that every year after JAMB, only less than 50% of those who take JAMB or pass JAMB actually have places in universities. So that's also a problem because people want to go to universities, even if it's because we like certificates or for whatever reason, but there's simply no space for them to go. I wrote it in the chat and I'm not quite sure, unless I'm missing it, this whole conversation about autonomy. Yes, the government education budget, when Obi Ezekwesili was Minister of Education, she was the one that audited it and said, we're spending so much, we're like spending 90% of our education budget funding 10% of our population. So you have that problem at that level. And then at the tertiary level, why is the government funding universities? Why are you not funding students to attend universities so that the universities can then do all the things that Dr. Onyison said, for example, in raising funds? I disagreed vehemently with Dr. Amadi when he was talking about supporting universities to look for their alumni. I mean, it's a no-brainer for the universities. You have a whole university full of young students who can write programs, who can man offices as extra work, as Dr. Onyison said, get them as volunteers and interns, put them in a room, give them cell phones, give them names, let them go on Google, LinkedIn, and begin to find people who have Ife, Lagos, Ibadan, and build the database. And once the alumni see that you're building that database, they will come forward when they see a system that works. When Ife turned 60 this year, so my parents were academics in Ife. When Ife turned 50, was when I started reaching out to the VC and saying, leading up to Ife's 50th anniversary, let's build this database. Ibukwan Weshika, who was the first female chairman of First Bank, was an Ife alum. Alade Komo, who owned Champs and all that. I mean, the roster of Ife alum is literally the who's who of Nigerian private sector, not to talk of any of your first generation universities. Why can't we sit and build these databases? Because we know what they can do. And I'll end with this story that really just captures why we are not serious, and that's why I disagree with Dr. Amadi. Dr. Suleiman, who was head of Accenture, was also chair of the board at Unilag at the time. While he was there, Unilag never asked him for money. Not one day did they ask him as alumni to donate. It was after he'd left that he realized that as part of being MD of Accenture, which is a global company, Accenture would have matched whatever donations he made to Unilag. So if, for the sake of argument, Dr. Suleiman had given Accenture, Unilag 5 million naira, Accenture would have matched that fund. So Unilag would have gotten 10 million naira. Now this was, I don't know how many years, Dr. Suleiman left Accenture probably a decade ago. I'm not sure that Unilag has done anything with that ecosystem in allowing people to come back and give. So the universities themselves are not serious. They'd rather protest that they have not gotten allowances. I mean, Ife, and I'll end with this, Ife's architecture is a masterpiece anywhere in the world. It was designed by an Israeli architect. And for me, part of the thinking that has not allowed our universities to even grow is that the university, for example, allows people to donate buildings or build buildings that have nothing to do with the original architecture. Original architecture is sandblast on the walls. It's not painted. Now we have gory buildings that are yellow and peach and all sorts of disgusting colors. So and I'm focusing on tertiary because that's a pain and passion point of mine. But the point I'm trying to make is that there are a lot of challenges with government. There's a lot of challenges with the structure. But if the universities themselves were serious about gaining back their own independence and some of the things that have been proposed here, and they were serious about them, the students who go there, the alumni who are products of the university can easily rally around and say, we want to turn these places into centers of excellence because this is where I went. I'm proud of my Ife, Unilag, Ibadan, ABU heritage, and I want to make sure that we go back to being recognized as world-class universities. Thank you.